Hey everybody, I'm here with Graham Elwood, the political vigilante. Hey Graham, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Check out Graham's show on YouTube, Political Vigilante. Right now we're talking about Syria and the media's coverage of Syria. Now you've seen, we showed you Brian Williams and how he literally nutted in his underwear while he was talking about the beauty of the rockets that were going to kill people in Syria. We are guided by the beauty of our weapons. That's what he said. By the way, it's ubiquitous coverage on the establishment media. They all love the war. We did another video, if you watch the story we did, about how the top 5 newspapers in the United States, the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post, USA Today, and the New York Post, they all did 18 stories on the war, on Syria, on the Syria strike that Trump did. All 18 positive. Not one anti-bombing story or opinion piece or editorial or anything. 18 positive. And that's our newspaper. Remember how they screwed up getting us into Iraq? They wouldn't let that happen again. You remember how they screwed everything up? How the New York Times, my favorite fake news stories were the ones about the Iraq War. The New York Times would post on their front page above the fold, written by Judith Miller, which came directly from the lips of Dick Cheney and were complete bullshit. And then we got a war. They're doing it again. 18 positive stories, because Chomsky was right that the establishment media are lapdogs to power. Any dictator would be thrilled with the conformity of the United States press. And so here is Brian Stelter. He hosts Reliable Sources on CNN. And we've showed you Brian before. He's a very nice guy. He likes to bring on Glenn Greenwald every once in a while to explain to him how journalism works. And but Glenn does that to everybody. He explains it to Chris Hayes, who needs a refresher course every once in a while. He does it on CNN all the time. He'll do it on wherever you bring him. Glenn will teach you about how to do journalism. So here is Brian Stelter, and he has a question for now. This is Jeremy Scahill from The Intercept, and he looks mad. He's a little upset about how the establishment press has been covering stuff. So let's just go ahead. Let's jump right into it.
Jeremy,
just to remind you about CNN, the guy who hosted this show before Reliable Sources, the guy who hosted Reliable Sources before Brian was a guy named Howard Kurtz, and he had to leave the program after it was revealed that he filed one too many stories that were unreliable. Then he became the media critic at Fox, which is an existential joke all on its own. They have a media critic at Fox. Hey, did you? Yes. Do you know he doubles as the sensitivity trainer for the White House? So here, let's watch this. Here we go.
there is awareness of what's been going on in Syria, but for some reason, maybe people are desensitized. What is your view of the coverage?
First of all, I love this. It says, has the media failed in covering Syria? That's the question.
I don't know. This is my favorite thing about the news. Like, we got to get both sides.
Well, let's first of all, let's check, Graham. Let's look at all the negative stories they've written about the Syria war. Oh, there hasn't been any.
Oh.
And then we'll juxtapose those against all the pro-war stories. Oh, that's all they have? It's hard to tell that. I can't really do an analysis.
It's like when they have someone who's like, is the Earth flat? You know, and they bring like a flat Earth person on. Like, well, let's see. Like, there's
it's still a question.
We don't know this. And they think that the question mark is somebody over there going, well, this is good journalism.
Yeah.
That's what
we're asking questions.
We're asking the tough questions, Jimmy. We're going to get to the root of this.
We're willing to have the hard conversations.
Yeah.
So here we go. So he asked the question. Let's start from the top again.
Jeremy, I think there is awareness of what's been going on in Syria, but
there is not. You know why there isn't an ounce, a scintilla of awareness what's actually happening in Syria? Because guys like Wolf Blitzer and you have been bringing us the story, Brian, and you've been reporting it exactly the way the government wants you to report it, which is incorrect. Why are we in Syria? Because we care about people? Because we care about the people. Assad is he's butchering his own. That's why we're there, because we care about people. Again, if we cared about people, we'd make sure they had clean water in Flint. We don't care about people. We wouldn't have went into Iraq and killed 1 million people. We wouldn't sell cluster bombs to Saudi Arabia that they drop on fishing villages in the poorest country in Africa. We wouldn't do that. We don't give a shit about people. Why are we in Syria? That's the question. Never gets asked or answered. But okay, back to, I know I'm going to stop and start this 1 million times. Here we go.
Jeremy, I think there is awareness of what's been going on in Syria, but for some reason, maybe people are desensitized. What is your view of the coverage?
Well, first of all, let's look at this in the big picture. Donald Trump has given greater latitude to the military to conduct strikes with almost no regard for civilians. Just in the month of March, Brian, U.S. and allied forces have killed more than 1,000 civilians in Iraq and Syria, according to the nonpartisan independent group Air Wars. Trump is funneling weapons and intelligence to the Saudis that are being used to utterly destroy Yemen at this point. The United States has been engaged militarily in Syria for several years now, both in the form of special operations forces and increasingly conventional boots on the ground, but also just scorched earth bombing, particularly since Trump took office. And I have to say, Brian, that Arwa Damon is a fantastic reporter. I have great respect for her. But I think when we talk about this, CNN needs to immediately withdraw all retired generals and colonels from its airwaves. You know, Fareed Zakaria, if that guy could have sex with this cruise missile attack, I think he would do it. Brian Williams seemed to just be in true love with the cruise missile strike and in a despicable way invoking Leonard Cohen's name. I mean, the media coverage has been atrocious, particularly, and this is across the board on every network, particularly when the strike is happening. It's like they're in awe of the cruise missiles. And look no further than Hillary Clinton, Bill Kristol, and Donald Trump once again being on the same team when it comes to these kinds of wars. The elite of both parties just all get in line, and they absolutely love a cruise missile strike.
Jeremy, I think
what I liked about that the most, all that truth happening on CNN, and I would like to say thanks to Jeremy Scahill, who we'll never see on CNN again.
That's
pretty much his last appearance. I can't believe they didn't cut his fucking mic. Go ahead.
I'm amazed too. I'm amazed they didn't cut his mic. I'm amazed they let that happen. And like, hats off to him, man. He said, "You want me on CNN?
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna get me on CNN." This is why I go to The Intercept. You know, this is why I reference a lot of their articles on my show, because it's that. It's a 1,000 civilians, and as we've talked about in other videos, how much has CNN covered those 1,000 civilians in the month of March that America has killed in the Middle East? I don't see any of those videos anywhere.
Wait a minute, Graham, you didn't see all the pictures of the 1,000 people we killed in Syria and Iraq?
No, I didn't. I haven't seen any of them.
You have to go to.
It's by the.
It's on the. I think it's on a telephone pole on Sawtell. Where it crosses San Vicente, there's a picture of the people we killed.
But I think it got blown down and it's now behind an alley or something
like
that.
But
it's there.
But it's there.
They covered it.
So, and I love how Brian Stelter kept no reaction on his face through that whole thing. He was like, "Oh shit, I can't let anyone know that." He was stone faced. Did you notice that? Like,
what can you say? That's the thing. When you start throwing these statistics at people. I've done this. I've watched people do this on the news. I've said this to people personally. When you say, this is how many civilians we're already killing, they kind of, huh? Or regime change doesn't work. They're kind of like, oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right. We did this before. It didn't work. Who are we going to put in their place? Oh, we killed 1,000 people in a month? Where are those pictures? Where are those pictures?
Where are those pictures?
Where are they? Well, if we showed those pictures, people wouldn't be on board for us starting World War III. And I don't know if you know this, we only have 6 media outlets, and none of them want to hear the truth about Syria. They're all for war, 100%. Why? War sells, baby. War gets ratings. War sells papers. War gets clicks, baby. That's why. War gets fucking ratings. And go anything?
Well, I was going to say this: when they show they're the lightest coverage they'll get of any sort of dispute is, well, Russian and Syria, and they always say state TV is claiming they didn't have chemical weapons. These motherfuckers are the most corporate state TV I've ever seen in my life.
We don't need state TV. They do it just as if it was state TV.
It is state. And Glenn Greenwald said it. He goes, as soon as there's a war, they immediately become state TV.
Immediately. And they are.
And that's what they are. It's pushing the narrative of the corporate state, which is just war, war, war. We need oil.
So I want to hear him say this one more time because it was pretty awesome.
There is awareness of what's been going on in Syria.
And how could this guy be and so do you think, Graham, like a guy like Brian, do you think he doesn't have the information that you and I have about Syria? Or do you think that he does have it and he just goes, if I acknowledge this, I'm out of a job. And I'll be out of a job forever. It's like if he said, hey, 9/11 was an inside job. I'm out of a job. He'll be out of a job if he says something like that about Syria, or if he tells the truth about Syria. He must know. He must have seen Ken Swan's reports. He must know that it was printed in the Washington Post that CIA admitted most of their money is being spent training Al Qaeda and ISIS for Syria and arming them. So this is not. So he must know that, right?
I don't know. That's a fantastic question. Does he know? And he's just like, nope. Is he doing that thing that I think a lot of Americans doing in the media? It's like if you found out you had a relative that you really loved and cared about, and they were like a serial killer or a pedophile. There's a part of you that might just go, nope.
Yeah.
No, they didn't. No. Joe Paterno graduated a lot of guys. We're gonna
Bill Cosby's kids.
Yeah.
Right? What do they do at Thanksgiving? They got to pretend. They got to pretend.
I know.
So that's what Brian Stelter's doing, right?
I guess he's just like bold-faced denial because he doesn't want to admit it, or it's what you say. He's like, he has the information, he knows it, and is like, well, I'm going to lose a job. Or he's just doesn't even want to get that, and it's just this crazy groupthink. Everyone at the pool in the pre-production meeting is all just like, yeah, and everyone, Assad's bad, and they all just cheerlead and jump. I don't know. It's insane, though. I feel like I'm going crazy when it's like...
Well, that's how I felt before the Iraq War. Like, I'm going crazy or the world is crazy. Turned out the world was crazy.
Yeah.
And they're willingly crazy. So it's happening again. And I feel like he does. I feel like Mr. Scahill does here. That's how I feel. Like, what the F do you guys not see? And he's basically saying to Brian Stelter, how far up your ass is your head? You run a scrutiny program where you scrutinize the media and you're saying most people know about what's happening in Syria. You don't know what's happening in Syria. And you're somehow are going to come out and comment about how other people are covering Syria? What are you, out of your mind? Do you see how this is worthless? Do you see how worthless, no value CNN has? The only value Brian Stelter's show on CNN has is to forward establishment and the plutocrats' agenda. That's all this is. Exactly what Chomsky said. Exactly. It's not even close. And either he's an unwitting idiot or he's just like everyone else and he's afraid for his job and he'll go along with starting World War III to do it, to keep his job. Just like Rachel Maddow will do, just like Chris Hayes will do. Just like Wolf Blitzer does, willingly. That's why these guys get hired. These guys aren't guys out there breaking down doors, breaking open stories, and holding the establishment's feet to the fire, and that's why they get a show on fucking TV. They get a show on TV because they will go along with the plutocrats' agenda. That's why, because they are willing to do whatever it is, wittingly or unwittingly. If you watch broadcast news, these guys are William Hurt. These guys are Brian Williams. They'll do whatever you want. Please keep me on television. That's and that's why he gets hired. He didn't get hired, Brian Stelter didn't get hired because he was a hard-nosed journalist. He got hired because they know he wasn't going to rock the fucking boat.
He got hired the same reason Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers are hired.
That's exactly right.
You know, when I think it was Marco Rubio was on Seth Meyers talking about, I don't know about climate change. Seth Meyers, joke, and they'll make a joke about Trump's hair or whatever like that, or like some sort of build a wall joke is the meanest they'll get. But they're not going to go for the throat. None of these guys are going to go for the throat. They're all playing ball, and that's when you give somebody 7 figures, guess what? They'll play ball.
Yes, and by the way, that show fully advertised. All the advertisers can't wait to buy more ads on the CNN bullshit show.
Wait a minute, that didn't get demonetized because it had Syria in the title?
It's got Syria in the title. You can see it says Syria, but they're still running ads on that. But they won't run ads for us here. And if you saw an ad on this video, hooray for us that it
Watch
snuck
it
through.
And click it.
Watch it. Let it play through. Because it somehow it snuck through, and we're doing everything on our end that we can do to sneak through our videos. So Anyway, they'll advertise on that, but they won't advertise on this because they don't want us to tell you the truth about anything. So that's why we're appealing to you, and you guys have really supported the show. So we have our links underneath: Patreon, become a premium member, T-shirt, Amazon, lots of ways you can help support the show. These motherfuckers. Thank God they exist, because that's why I exist. If he was actually doing his job, if they were doing their job, I wouldn't have to be. I could go out and do something else. I could just go back to being a comedian and sit around all day. Oh, God, I miss those days.
Go to the movies, hang out.
You know what my big thought was when I was a comedian? Where am I going to have lunch? That was my big task.
Yeah.
Where am I going to have lunch? And then I have to fit in a workout, go have lunch, and then go do my set. Oh, such a life.
You had to take a shower about 6:30 at night. Then you drive over to the club around 7-ish, get there. Maybe get dinner at the club.
I get dinner at the club.
I get dinner at the club. I like to eat a little bit before the show.
I like a chicken finger before I do a set.
Then you hang out with the other comics after the show, or you go to another club and hang out with. You're just hanging out, and what do you do with comics? You just fucking laugh and giggle all goddamn night.
And Graham, the whole time though, you're writing.
You're right. The whole time
I'm working.
I'm working.
I'm writing. And actually you are.
I tell people, cancel your cable subscription and donate to Patreon shows like this one and mine, and
Graham,
that's what you do.
That's what you do. Cancel your cable and go to the Political Vigilante, come to the Jimmy Dore show.
It'll still be, if you just supported both of our shows and Young Turks, it'll be cheaper than what the fuck you're paying for this CNN cable bullshit.
Oh, by the way, if we only had cable news, we definitely would have an even more right-wing government. So, yeah, it costs you. It costs you. If you don't support these shows, it's going to cost you.
Yeah.